Hello, this is Sleepytalesoftheworld, where we speak softly into the places history still avoids at night. If you're ready, I'll lay my voice like a blanket over an old December road and tell you what I remember about a house that once stood in Fayetteville, West Virginia. I'll tell you how its windows held warm light against the cold, and how a story became a winter ghost that still walks the hills. I speak in the first person, because that is how a memory keeps its shape, as if I am standing just beyond the fence, with my breath making small clouds, and the snow listening. Because in the hush of this hour, it is easier to leave the door open to possibility, to sorrow, to love that will not sit down. So come with me quietly into Christmas Eve, 1945, when the world was hung with tinsel and the radio crooned. A family named Sodder tucked their children into a house that had been built from work and stubbornness and the ordinary hope of tomorrow. Even though the clock has turned and the town has changed its coat many times since then, the road there still seems to lean toward the past, as if something in the gravel remembers the weight of that night. The story walks in the shape of a father and a mother and 9 children asleep beneath a roof that had known summer storms and quiet supper hours. For a little while, everything is simple. The smell of pine, a bowl cooling on a windowsill, a lamp turned low. Somewhere not too far, a phone rings. There are accounts of a late call with laughter that didn't belong, a voice asking a name no one knew, then a click, a dial tone like a thin winter wind. And somewhere else, a quieter thing, a feeling that the air has learned a new language and is murmuring it to the boards. I could tell you this as a list with dates and distances, but it would not be true to the way the heart receives such stories. So I will follow the glow of lantern glass and the small map a mother carries in her hands when she checks on the sleeping. Outside, the wind leans on the siding and steps back, as if deciding whether to knock. There are the uncanny details people still speak about in Fayette County, the ladder usually propped against the house, later found far down the slope, a telephone line cut, a barrel of water frozen stiff, the coal trucks that wouldn't start. These details become like stray notes that do not match the hymn, making the town, the nation, and in time, the whole world hum along uneasily. Time is a lantern held by shaking hands in a smoke-thick night. Just past 1 in the morning, a flash of thud on the roof. Then the smell that turns a mother to the window in a single breath. The sight of fire blooming, where it has no right to shine quick and loud and hungry. The house blinks as if surprised, and then begins to speak and crackle and sigh. Within seconds, every decision matters. Flame is the fastest judge we know. I remember the way a father runs without thinking, his bare feet finding the porch, the cold biting but not felt, because he is counting names in his head like a rosary. He circles the house toward the ladder that is always there and finds only absence. He makes a ladder of himself instead, climbing the bricks with his hands until the heat throws him down. He tries the trucks and finds only coughs, silence. Then he and his sons pull snow and earth to the foundation, trying to make a staircase into the second story, where 5 children are believed to be sleeping. The stairwell is already a throat of fire, and noise has become the language of loss. The fire department arrives late enough that nothing remains but embers, a chimney like a gravestone, and a yard bright with ash. Morning comes, as it always does, and the smoke thins to a smudge over the foundation. Neighbors stand with hats against their chests, and someone says the word miracle in the same breath as impossible, because the ashes do not give up the small, solemn evidence that 5 children lay where their pillows once were. Men rake and sift. A coroner's jury chooses its line. Faulty wiring. A certificate is stamped. This would be enough sorrow for any telling, but the world proves broader and stranger than endings. Soon there are reports that do not fit into the ash. A woman at a roadside stop who remembers seeing children the right ages with adults who spoke sharply. A hotel clerk who believes a group came through in the small hours. Years later, a photo mailed to the family. A boy, almost a man with eyes that seemed borrowed from a son who did not return. I have stood in the imagination required by midnight before the billboard George and Jenny Sodder raised along the highway. That long, stubborn sheet of testimony stayed for decades, their children's names lettered there against the sky, so a stranger might one day recognize a face and pull over to say, "I have seen them." The years thereafter become their own kind of winter, the kind where the world forgets. Except the Sodders would not forget. It is here the story grows a second, subtler fire, the fire of maybe and what if. I can tell you about insurance men who spoke with odd boldness, about a ladder that walked away, about a phone line that died precisely when it should have lived. But really, I want only to keep the lantern lit long enough for you to see the most human thing, that love makes detectives of us. A hill town in West Virginia discovered it could grow 2 winters out of one word on the calendar, and one behind the eyes. If you ask for closure, I have only the honest answer that the Sodder Children's absence became its own being. I tell you, I have walked there in my thoughts under a thin winter moon. I have placed the ladder back against the eaves. I have heard the truck start on the first try. I have watched a father climb into smoke and emerge with his arms full of tomorrow. But dream is not a courthouse. We are left with what the quiet gives us. A family whose love could not sit still. A town that learned to speak softly, and a road that carried a billboard for years, like a candle held in an outstretched hand saying, "Look here." When I finish this story, I will close the door gently so the house can rest. And I will remind you that not every fire finishes what it starts. And sometimes the most faithful act is to keep watch. And so, softly, I speak the names as the Sodder parents once did, small constellations spoken into a room. And I ask the night to carry them where newsprint cannot go. If you are lying down now, breathe with me. As you breathe, you may feel the story loosen its grip and become part of history. Imagine the hillside at dawn, white with a fresh, forgiving snow, and 5 paths leading inward toward a warm kitchen. Whether those paths exist only in imagination or in the ledger of the possible, let them be enough for sleep, because tonight we choose gentleness over certainty. Thank you for listening. Please consider subscribing for more tales from the quiet corners of the world.